We are here at Realities and Dominion, and tonight we are going to talk about reality. What is reality? It's what we can see, we can smell, we can touch, we can perceive with our five senses. It's something very difficult to define sometimes. During a series of programs here, we're going to see that reality is something bigger than we can perceive just with our five senses. We're going to see interesting aspects of reality correlate to a lot of phenomenology that happens around the world. Reality could be something beyond that. It could be related to what we have in our minds, for example, in our consciousness, in our intra-world. But if we think for a moment, if we are talking about matter and energy, reality could be something very interesting. According to physics, or theoretical physics nowadays, our universe is part of a collection of multiverses that forms a wider reality we cannot see but is here. In the same room I'm talking about, we could have multiple realities or parallel worlds. There was a guy in the 50s from the University of Princeton. His name was Hugh Everett. He created a very interesting theory about reality, theory of multiverses. Reality could be something wider in terms of perspective. There are some philosophers nowadays, they explain reality in a much different way, taking consideration that reality is not just what we have around us, but what we have inside of us, in our minds, in our consciousness. Edmund Russell is one of them that has this perspective about reality. Today, a lot of people, they think we live in a simulation, a computer simulation, like the film, The Matrix. But is that true? It's very difficult to know these kind of things, because if you are inserted into this reality, to have a different perspective of it from inside of it, it's very difficult. If you're thinking about the visible light, the visible world that is captured from one of our senses is correlated to a small fraction of reality. That's the visible light in the electromagnetic spectrum. Reality could be much more than this. For example, we cannot see the radio waves, gamma rays, radiation, but they are there. Physics nowadays explain reality in a very different way, taking consideration. We could have in the same room here multiple realities or multiverse, and one of these universe having matter in a different frequency that quantum physics call different decoherency. In the same room here, we could have a dinosaur that's still alive and didn't die, because in this parallel reality, this parallel timeline, the dinosaurs, they were not extincted. Every time we make a choice in our reality, we create a parallel universe. But can we prove this nowadays? Science today found out that in our universe there are some very empty cold areas when we study the microwave background. This aspect of this emptiness in our universe could be one of the fingerprints of other universe colliding or touching our universe. But can we go beyond of this when we're talking about multiverse and parallel worlds? Today we see a lot of stories in the internet as well of people vanishing in the middle of the air and showing up in another reality. When they come back, or when some of these people they come back, they tell us interesting stories about in wake up in a parallel universe where everything was very similar to ours. Today we have something else that people call Mandela effect. This is an interesting aspect correlate what we are talking about tonight, because there are some people, they say they remember things that they never happened here, but in their minds these things happen. For example, there are stories about people remembering some details of some musics or some aspects of our reality that for a small number of people this was real, but they never happened in our reality. And during the 90s, this phenomenology was called Mandela effect, because a lot of people thought that Nelson Mandela died during the 90s. And in fact, there were some people, they wrote even a book about that, saying that they could remember even the funeral of Nelson Mandela. But what has it to do with reality? These people, they believe that these memories from Nelson Mandela's funeral, when they thought he died, they were real because they happened not in this reality, but in another reality. But how can be this true? Interesting is that when we go to sleep every night, we don't know what happened when we sleep during the night. The project Realities and Dominion has some interesting testimonies about people remembering that when they woke up the next following day, some small little details of our reality, they were different from what they thought or what they were expecting it would be. And taking consideration all these aspects, would that be possible when we sleep? We wake up in different versions of ourselves in parallel worlds. The project believes it is possible, and this is a reality we can go through every night when we go to sleep. Because nowadays we don't know what is consciousness. Consciousness is very difficult to define, because one thing we are sure, it's not matter. Matter cannot produce consciousness. The brain is something that translates, or is a tool for the consciousness to manifest in our reality, but doesn't mean that chemical reactions in our brain is consciousness. Most of the times, science cannot perceive reality using an empiric methodology. Why? Because when we study realities that are related to parallel realities, or multiverse, for example, and this is very difficult to be used in some situations when consciousness is involved in the process of analysis. For example, if there's another reality and we try to communicate with beings living this reality, we cannot test this in a lab and repeat this experiment every time we want, because the other side of the experiment, or the other consciousness involved in this experiment, they have what we call free will. And if they decide not to repeat this experiment in a lab, we cannot validate using the empiric method. And science, from this point, tells us that because of that reality or that experiment doesn't exist, or it failed. So we need to develop a new methodology to study some phenomenologies they call paranormal. Actually, something we call paranormal should be called paranormal, because there's some phenomenologies, they don't happen every day in our daily lives, but they exist. And that doesn't mean that this is paranormal. It's something that doesn't happen frequently, but doesn't mean that it's not there. From this program, in a series of programs, we're going to be investigating what is reality and what we are doing here in our reality. What happens when we die? Is there a parallel world we go after our death? Is there what they call spiritual world? What is all of this about? So I see you in the next program in Realities and Dominion. See you guys. Take care.